bureaucracy to any level of government, but county especially, is going to be efficient, save money, or any other good thing, is brainless. You're adding another person, another staff, more money. I'd just like to say that if you guys are going to do this, you should each take money out of your own income that's coming from the county to pay for this. Because why are we paying you if we need another person? That's all I got to say. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Agello. I am an 11-year employee. I live in Otsego. As Mr. Aaron spoke, I come from, diverse. I'm also a citizen and I'm employed. So we will be affected two ways by this individual. I've been looking over his duties, her duties. Let's just call him the CM, okay? Make it easy. The CM is going to have incredible duties. I don't even think this person's going to need an office. He's going to be on the road most of the time, trying to figure out what social services does, the highway department, all the different aspects of this county. It's tremendous. We have department heads that do the best they can. And now they're going to have someone over them to troubleshoot. Or where is this individual going to be? Below you. He's going to be serving, the CM is going to be serving at your pleasure. So therefore, I don't understand why you would need this individual if he's going to be your spokesperson. The CM is going to need a staff. The CM is going to need someone, maybe someone in the county, to advise on how to proceed when you don't even know what this particular committee or the particular department does. I am a clerk. I field so many calls during the day where they will ask me, what do I do for housing? What do I do for food stamps? How do I get to the meadows? Where do I go? The CM is going to need to know all this and more. I argue with my daddy too, mostly my grandfather. He was a Republican, we were Democrats. So I understand the family dynamics of how this will impact. But please, understand, we're not being, combative with you. We want to be respectful. We have excellent department heads. They come to you. You go to Dave Bliss, Mr. Bliss, with all due respect. I really don't think we need another layer of government, and that's the truth. But if we do, if you do decide, and I think you probably will, please find someone who is of a high ethical caliber, who is knowledgeable, who can communicate, who is not a bully, and who is not a hatchet man. Remember that old term? We had one in the company I worked for. The owner was beautiful, but he told the hatchet man what to do. So, being of a certain age, we know how that works in companies and in governments. And in closing, I would like to thank you, Mr. Bliss, for closing the building so that we had safety with our constituents and our employees. We thank you very much. And thank you again for having this opportunity.
Anyone else? Last call.
I want to speak on it, and I want to submit a letter. Just as a citizen, which I will read again. I submit this letter that Ed Frazier sent to all of us, but he wanted it on the record. 23 months ago, the IGA committee took up the task of studying centralized leadership and talked to administrators in other counties, did research, had people come in. I'm not sure they ever, at the end, final analysis said, what do we have? And let's compare it, the pros and cons to other things. I don't think keeping this arrangement was ever really a charge of that committee. But I commend them for the work that they did on it and came down on a different side than where I am, but that's life. We are one of few counties without a full-time executive or manager, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Although at times our process is bumpy, the end result has delivered budgets within the tax cap, innovative programs, and sustainable spending. You only have to look at the New York State Comptroller's website to find a list of county governments that are under fiscal stress. Currently Suffolk, Nassau, Westchester County, all listed as under significant financial stress. What do they all have in common? Each has a centralized leadership, a county executive. So that hasn't resulted in them being in a fiscally sound position, but we are. Otsego County continues to be run by a board of representatives who have consistently kept the county under the mandated tax cap and whose tax rate is the lowest in the state, while still providing the needed services to our constituents and managing to be innovative in the process. In the letter I submitted, which the board has been privileged to, Ed Frazier cited many of our accomplishments over the past 10 years, so I'm not going to rehash them all. They're there. I will point out that many of the things that this board has accomplished have been innovative, fiscally sound, and were accomplished by a board of part-time legislators in concert with department heads and staff. When I came on the board, we were part of MOSA, a tri-county authority for solid waste. MOSA failed to live up to its promise of effective solid waste management, and each year the county found itself having to guarantee the delivery of tonnage we were never going to collect and pay for it. So the part-time county chair, the part-time legislator who was chair of the solid waste committee, and the part-time county attorney went up to the state and got them to pass a resolution allowing us to dissolve that authority, to remove ourselves from that authority, and to take with us our proportional share of its assets. And we did that. We got that accomplished. And then, working with the planning department, we established a private-public partnership to handle the solid waste needs of this county. And in doing so, we increased the services. There's now all types of recycling that goes on through there. We expanded the hours to meet our needs, which most wouldn't do, but in the summer when we have this influx of people, we now have longer hours that we're operating. And we were able to decrease the solid waste user fee, which affected every taxpayer in this county. This part-time band of legislators working with the county planner established this partnership, public and private. We need to do more of those kind of things. When it became glaringly obvious that the county could no longer sustain the nursing home, sad as it was part-time legislators who created an LLC charged with finding a buyer for the home so that its residents would not have to find a new home outside of the county because the doors of the county home had been shuttered for good. Suffolk County, which has a county executive, was not able to do that and instead closed their doors abruptly and without having found a suitable buyer, and those people were all displaced. Several years ago, board leadership sought to maximize tourism promotion efforts and met with area tourism professionals, which resulted in the formation of Destination Marketing of Otsego County, and soon negotiated a contract that used bed tax revenue to support its efforts and incentivized increasing those revenues annually. This has proven to be a very successful partnership. This unique relationship has caught the eye of the county administrator in Schoharie County, and he is now pursuing a similar opportunity with DMOC. A few years ago, we pioneered the first inter-county partnership in purchasing in the state. We signed an agreement with Onondaga County. Other county administrators, Phil Church, who came here, are now touting that they are going to do the same thing years later. It's good to see more people coming onto the program, but we were first. We pioneered that with them. Part-time legislators. With the emergence of such entities as Airbnb coming onto the scene, it became increasingly challenging to make sure we were going to capture all our bed tax revenues. So we are now engaged in a contract with Airbnb where they collect that bed tax revenue at the start when those reservations are secured. So that's just a few of the things that we did. I think that to do this, to add another layer in there, I don't know. You'd have to be the right person. We probably have more experience sitting in this room, I look around this boardroom, than the person that ultimately gets the job will have. When you sit here and you look around this boardroom, we have people that are small business owners with construction experience, codes experience, corrections experience, former highway superintendents, communications experience, dispatching experience, emergency services experience, conflict resolution, contract negotiations, people with masters in public administration, real world experience, and a good blend of higher learning, technical skills, and experience in the school of hard knocks. In the real world, where you have to balance a budget and provide services with the resources at hand. If you don't, you'll soon be out of business or fired, because unlike government, you cannot simply raise the taxes and compel others to pay for the services you need to deliver. If this transition is to be made successful, you need to set the table for that success. You need to have a concrete plan for change management for department heads who are being required to report to someone else for the first time. You should not be planning to hire somebody in July, which is the start of the budget season, when they're the person that's going to be responsible for the budget. You need to budget for the expenditures, and I did research on the cost of this, and I don't know where anybody thought that $100,000 for a county manager in this county to manage 62,000 people in the county and all the services we have is enough. What is that based on? There's not a penny in there for any help for this person. Are you setting them up to fail? Or are you setting them up to succeed? The smallest county, Schoharie, which has about 31,000 people, started out with the same premise. We should have learned from their mistake. They had somebody in there at $100,000, soon needed a $61,000 a year assistant to do their work and assist them in their work. Greene County, population $47,000, has a county executive who makes $143,000, and just last year added another assistant county administrator to the staff. Their personal service line for that office went from $404,000 in 2018 to $509,000 in 2020. Oswego County, where Phil Church is from, population $118,000. Has the county executive, a $70,000 budget analyst, a $45,000 administrative assistant, two senior account clerks, one at $40,000, one at $35,000. Administrative secretary, $40,000, and a part-time auditor at $11,000, for a total of $366,477. Are they without problems? No. Are we without problems? No. Greene County, their jail was on the list. We had issues at our jail. We weren't on the top 5 list, as Ed pointed out in his letter, of places that had to close their jail. The jail has been closed for over a year. Their county administrator was in the paper. Somebody auctioned off parts of the jail, the old jail. It was a historical building, and the people were coming in, taking the doors off, trying to load them onto a car, going to come take the staircase, and the county administrator said, "This is an unauthorized sale." Well, he had authorized it. He just didn't fully read the email that was sent to him. So for $700, somebody got a lot of good historical pieces of that building. And now they're trying to ask the person to maybe give it back, although they have no legal authority to do that. So it's not going to end all the problems. It is going to add another layer of bureaucracy. And there's a lot. When I came on this board 12 years ago, and it's striking to me that people that have more experience are the ones less inclined to make the change. You come on, every one of us runs on an issue, or a couple of issues, and are concerned with that issue, and have no idea of the myriad of other things that this county does, and that you would be responsible for. And it takes a lot of effort and a lot of initiative. I agree that if this position goes through, and it's looking like it will, there won't be a lot of votes against it, money should come from the salaries of the county representatives who just voted to increase their own salaries for the first time since 2008, and then to diminish their responsibilities. That should come. If $5,000 came from every representative of the 13, do the math, there's $65,000, an additional amount from the chair of the board. We need to be fiscally responsible, not get ourselves into something that's going to burgeon every single year. We have the abilities here, but it does take people. It takes people coming to meetings, contributing at meetings, and doing those things. I have suggested, I did to the IGA committee, that we could get a part-time budget analyst who would watch that budget every month. You could get someone, you're not paying a whole slew of benefits, and you get somebody with good experience for $30,000, And you could have somebody on staff here that, once the directive is given by these board members, make sure that things are turned in, gets a progress report on where it is and shares it with the employees. I think you can tweak this system. Not saying it's perfect, but I don't think you throw the baby out with the bathwater. And if you are to get someone that is less than competent at their job, it'll be a total disaster. So getting the right person is important. It's imperative. Getting the wrong person, disastrous. Saddling the county with an additional $300,000 at least in cost year after year is unwise and unnecessary. And failing to set the table for the success of this person is unconscionable. That's all.
Thank you.
I yield my time.
Anyone else? Hearing none, motion to close the hearing. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Hearing closed. I guess it's, I move into the regular meeting. Roll call now.
Frazier? Farwell? Here. Clark? Here. Stammel?
Here.
Kennedy?
Present.
Overacre?
Here.
Bliss?
Here.
Marietta?
Here.
McCarty?
Here.
Wilbur?
Here.
Koenig?
Here.
Martini? Here. Lappin?
Here.
Shannon?
If you're comfortable here, please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, privilege of the floor. Anyone like to speak on any matter? Yes. Maria?
Oh, okay. Good morning again. My name is Maria Agello. And what I have to say, I have been saying for the last 4 years. This is no secret to any of you that my house was taken in a tax auction where I asked the treasurer 50 days ahead of time, money in hand, to pay those back taxes. In that year, something unusual happened that hadn't happened in the previous years. Resolutions from the board, full board vote to transfer properties, but not for me and not for Bob Force. Bob Force's resolution came before, and Betty Schwerd, you'll have to take my word that she told us this, that Mr. Lindbergh wanted to table it. She wasn't going to vote on it, and the county attorney said, we don't need your vote. We have a statute that says we don't need to have a resolution. And there went Bob's property. And then mine went. Without a board vote, without knowing how the board felt. This has been the way you have always handled business. You have resolutions, you have agreement, you have disagreement. Everybody knows where you stood. And I honored that. We knew you wanted to take the homes, $66,000 of home equity that went to the county coffers. Other states will give it back to you. In Michigan, there is a case going on right now, home equity theft, they call it. The gentleman owed $8.41, and it went through. The house was taken. Now there's a case, and all the equity was taken as well. I'm asking you to be ethical in this. I asked you to pay the taxes. I went to the treasurer. He told me I could buy it back. Wasn't he generous? And it was sold to another employee with whom I work every day. So don't tell me that this is a very happy happy county, it isn't. There's a lot of people that struggle every day. Mr. Ruffles found a way that these people, up to 2 weeks ahead of time, could pay their back taxes. But not for me or for Bob. We were discriminated against, and I ask you, again, I need my home. Thank you. God bless. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Russ Aarons. And I live over in Toddsville, County Road 26. Start the clock. Here we go. Put your seatbelts on. 55 acres given back by resolution that you sold 3 years ago in Milford. What's going on? Nobody even lives there. It's some kind of, it seems to be a shell corporation. What kind of litigation, county attorney, came forward that you had to give that property back when I know that you had a wrong address on her documentation? It was a wrong address. Jim Castani pointed this out in court. Who changed that address, and how could it have been done other than by somebody here in this county to an address that she never had? There's a lot of questions, and there's a lot of wrong things that went on. Bob Force, don't forget him. You did it to him too. Unconscionable. Just sign it and go. Oh, I feel kind of bad I had to do it, but without you all being a part of it. And here you are, me coming reprimanding you month after month for something that basically you weren't even a part of. And now going forward, you're taking properties, you're transferring titles, none of you have any say in this, there's no ethical oversight, it's in the county law, it's your law, it's 1990 when this was passed, when this whole thing started. So make it right. Don't leave here today without doing a resolution from the floor. Let's see if you do it, and let's put an end to this. Do the right thing. You want your employees to be happy here. And, you know, I heard again from Mr. Petrie, like, it seems like there's a lot more employees, and there are in certain locations, but the highway department's been decimated so far as the numbers. I mean, their numbers are way down. Of course, by selling the nursing home, we lost a couple hundred employees there with very good jobs and pensions and people. These were my neighbors that are now working there under lower conditions. My good understanding, because I have a coworker that also works there, is that right now things will be picking up again. They have adequate food. They got a newer van. So, you know, the nursing home thing is another issue. This is a moral hangover for this county, and you're not going to, well, I'm not going to walk away from it. Ethical Courage Award, you ever heard of it? That's what they gave to that young man in Texas who hugged the police officer that shot. Did you see this on television this morning? Ethical Courage Award. He shot his brother, and he went over and he had to give her a hug because he realized that it was a mistake. Mistakes are made. We're human. It's when we fix them is what's right. And that's what we need to do here in this county. I trust this county, and I know we're going to do the right thing. I'm a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, hearing none, we will move on. Minutes of the November 6th meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Presentation of petitions, communications, and notices.
I have a notice intent to Tally Williams versus Otsego County Correctional Facility Sheriff Devlin and Correctional Officer Osterrock. Injury sustained due to negligence at the jail, no amount stated.
Special presentations.
I don't know if anybody's seen it.
Craig Royer, Train, see you here.
I think I told the DMC they didn't have to come. That was because they came on. They're coming plenty of times.
Well, we'll move on. Is DM's, oh, okay.
Yeah, they're coming in right here. Probably, you want them park there with you, or?
Yeah, he can, if he needs a computer, doesn't he?
Oh, no, they're just a two handouts.
How you doing?
Hi,
Hey, Dave.
thanks for coming.
See ya. How you doing?
Good.
Yeah.
They can't remember how we
Yeah, just pass him up there. We're gonna get started.
Okay. Let me see if I do. I think I.
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Morning. Just a heads up, I have a cold and my voice is getting lost. So if you can't hear me, just raise your hand or jump in, tell me to repeat, or I'll have Brian repeat for me. Because I think by the end of the day, I'm probably gonna have no voice. So my name is Greg Royer. Most of you know me. We've sat through several committee meetings during this process. I've got with me Brian Murphy, who's one of our energy engineers. Obviously, we're from Train, and for the past year, we've been developing and coming up with a energy efficiency project for the county. So as a quick kind of summary of the process, we initially started when the air handling unit in the basement of this building and the outdoor chiller unit were being looked at for replacement. But then, as we started getting talking, we got involved and started looking at other efficiency measures to help offset the cost of that system and really just bring the county up to a more efficient standard and have it flow through an energy performance contract, which is a self-funding mechanism which will essentially pay for itself over a period of time. So if we open up this handout that I passed around, I'm not going to go through the who we are. If you want to reference back to this, you can take a look on the first couple pages. But if we go right to page 4, I do want to just summarize quickly what is an energy performance contract. So essentially in 1997, New York State passed legislation allowing municipalities, public agencies to utilize your existing annually appropriated utility fund to self-fund an efficiency project. So this chart here on the right side of the page just kind of gives you an illustration of how that works. So essentially, if you spend or annually appropriate $100,000 a year, and we come in and say we're going to save $50,000 a year, or guarantee that we're going to save you $50,000 a year, you're paying the utility $50,000 less, and taking that $50,000 savings and reinvesting back into the county's infrastructure. That savings is guaranteed by Train, and it gets spread out over a certain amount of years to pay for itself. So that's essentially how it works. There's no impact on your tax base because it's a regularly annually appropriated item. Law states that you can't go over that. So if you appropriate $100,000 a year and you do one of these projects, you can't spend $101,000 a year the next year to pay your utility and, the repair.
And be running as efficiently. So if anything breaks and needs to be replaced, you're covering that cost.
So, right now you've got, a rooftop unit or a boiler or whatever in all your buildings. So Doug's department is responsible for maintaining that equipment. So if you replace an 80% efficient boiler with a 95% efficient boiler, you don't just abandon maintenance on it. You continue to maintain the piece of equipment as you normally would. So what you're getting is the efficiency effect of that replacement, but it still needs to be maintained like you normally would.
Yeah, but this is all electronic. Is that something that our local guy can do, or, used to be able to fix your own car too, now you open the hood and you can't touch anything?
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't, there wouldn't be an increase in service cost or, serviceability of the equipment. So any of the mechanical components or controls or anything like that is stuff that Doug's team already deals with on a daily basis. Yes.
Actually, to kind of even address that a little bit further, the units are so old that parts are becoming a huge issue. And one of the challenges that we've had is when something like that goes down, is not only to find the part or the replacement part, but also then to find the technician that has that ability, because those units are not in the mainstream any longer. So upgrading to a newer unit does not, as you so eloquently put, alleviate us from maintenance, but it also speeds up the potential issue by having parts and a technician that is familiar with that piece of equipment. So that was some of the things that Public Works looked at as well as we started to, that was that conversation that we had there. So I just wanted to add to that.
Yeah, no,
that was my concern. We need to replace
But
that
was brought up in Public Works as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure you guys looked at a lot of these things. And the new public safety building. Plans to incorporate this technology in everywhere we originally, and you've looked at it, that building?
In public safety, yeah.
The jail?
Yep, so lighting, controls, rooftop.
Controlling temperatures.
Yeah. So it's included for that building, but to Peter's point, the annual net maintenance cost savings, the $6,600 a year in maintenance cost savings, that would be attributed to not having to maintain a piece of equipment that's 50 years old, or lighting that you have to constantly replace ballasts and lamps and things like that. So, I mean, just an example, the lighting fixtures that we install, although they're rated or come with a 5 to 10 year warranty, the rated useful life of those is somewhere around 25 to 28 years. So essentially you put them in and there's no more maintenance with it, unless it's a warranty failure typically. Typically the first year or two is when you find those, they're covered and it gets replaced as needed.
Any other questions?
Okay, so just to wrap up real quick, if we go to page 11, I just wanted to go over the next steps. I have a folder here with simple resolutions on moving forward, so I'll just read these with you.
Okay, thank you.
So next step is to adopt a resolution to proceed with the implementation of the project and also enter into a financing arrangement. From there, once financing closes, we schedule a kickoff meeting with our project management team. They start mobilizing, getting equipment on site, working with Doug and his team to determine scheduling and occupancy and things like that. And then we build the project. Once construction's complete, you've got a full year to start realizing your energy savings, and then the first payment becomes due. So really, it's probably going to be closer to an 18-month period before first payments due, because we have a construction period where we're trying to knock out all the high payback items like the lighting first, and then incorporate the other items as we go along. And then once you guys sign off on substantial completion, then you've got that 12-month period to start generating all those savings. And then from there, we're, here for the long term. We're basically coming back, monitoring and verifying that the systems are working correctly. So, we'll be here, as a long-term partner throughout the process.
What other counties are you in currently doing this?
Wayne County, Fulton, Montgomery. What off the top of your head? I mean, me
Town of
personally.
Massillon, but that's also Wayne County.
So we have a lot of counties across the state that we've done projects with. I don't have the reference list. It's got a couple hundred project references on it. I've personally done projects with Saratoga, Fulton, Montgomery, Madison, Franklin. We're doing Wayne County, Jefferson County, Fulton, Montgomery, we're doing projects with. So we do quite a bit of county work, but we also do a ton of K-12 work and, local municipalities as well.
Any questions? Yes, we do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Good luck. Okay, DMC.
Dave, I may have told Jim that they didn't have to come again. I don't remember exactly how the conversation went.
I think we know their stats by heart by now.
Yeah, they have been here frequently this year.
So I don't think I knew that they were scheduled, and I just couldn't say for sure how that happened.
That's okay.
But I'll take the blame for it.
No worries. All right, and we'll move on. Reports of standing committees. Public Works, Representative Overard.
Thank you, Chairman Bliss. I'd like to start off my talks by announcing our next meeting date, so that I don't forget that. Public Works scheduled to meet December 19th at 1 p.m. in the second floor conference room. As you can see by the presentation by Train, I've got to give kudos to the Public Works Committee for their diligence in getting this moving forward in light of all that we've seen recently with some of the issues that we've had with our buildings. This is something that was a long time in getting moved forward, and we did a kind of a deep dive into it, and I think if we really start to look at it, I would like to see the board get behind this project moving forward. I also would like to start off by thanking all of our highway employees, and I was hoping for a little bit better weather coming through as opposed to some of these storms that have come through. I know I'm getting a little bit, I'll use the word ADD. When I wake up in the morning, I see flurries, and I have a counter going off in my head saying, what are we doing? How much sand are we putting out? How much salt we're putting out? Those type of things. But kudos to our staff for keeping the roads in an excellent condition. And it's funny because I get phone calls periodically, and it kind of goes like this: we're either plowing too much or not enough. So when I get those, I pretty much figure we're right in the middle of where we need to be. So at our last meeting from Highway, we had some transfers of monies to different accounts. You could read those in our minutes. And we opened up our fuel bids and approved our lowest bids. Those moving forward, those two are located in our minutes if anybody wants to go there and see who was awarded the bids. We had a very good discussion with Superintendent Brimmer of the procuring of sandstone and gravel. Seems to be a recurring discussion that we've had. looking at the necessary time it would take for us to make our sand for the winter, gravel and so on, volumes, prices, locations, and potentially a collaborating effort with some of the towns and villages on this project. So again, we feel that looking forward, this is an area that potentially we could be a little bit more efficient, do some cost savings there. We talked with Superintendent Brimmer about doing some rebidding of some in-place hot mix asphalt for 2020. We extended, or approved to extend the striping contract for the roads along with that. We discussed some employee in executive session. And one of the things that I think too moving forward, and this plays into again kind of the same concept that we saw today with Train, was that we accepted the proposal from C and S companies to complete phase 1 of the Otsego County Shared Transit Facility project. Hence the reason we said to Train to maybe not necessarily look at the added work moving forward with the highway department. The project that we're talking about is potentially, again, that shared transit facility with the folks down there at BOCES, a newer facility, a more energy efficient facility. So we'll be reporting back later on that. And then we also discussed, and this was a rather lengthy discussion, on the changes and reductions to the New York State funding source. Imagine that. Pave New York is now in its 5th year and it is ending. The Extreme Winter Recovery Program may not be included in the budget next year, so there are changes coming down that we'll have to deal with, I'm sure, moving forward. We had some good discussions about communications and an ongoing discussion about our tower management. We have had some proposals come our way, looking at potentially a lump sum amount being offered for, if you want to use the term, room on some of our towers. We discussed this in length, and we'll be probably talking more about that as we move forward. We approved some monthly lease agreements with some of the wireless carriers on our towers as well.
That's okay.
Building and grounds, again, work is progressing on the public safety building, both on the renovation side and on the repair side there. I have again sat in on those construction meetings, and it is an absolute, what's the word I'm looking for? It's an interesting process, I guess is the way to describe that, where again, one entity cannot move forward until this other entity who does this other entity who does this. So it's an amazing process to watch and observe. And but things are moving forward. We have had, I guess, some challenges. One of which being the it's not the air handler, it's the heating units, right? The rooftop units that were sent with the under the production scheme of it being natural gas, and we don't have natural gas. And as Mr. Zerkes has pointed out, it used to be an easier fix with just simply an orifice change from LP to natural gas, and these units do not have that ability. So again, some challenges that way moving forward. We did some basic, I use the word house cleaning, along the line with moving funds around to both take care of the repairs and or the renovation side. There isn't a true time frame, I believe, that has been established for bringing back the jail into full operation. I hope to be able to have that and I hope to be back, we hope to be back in open for business, so to speak, probably the first to mid part of January, but I'll update accordingly. 242 Main is moving forward, thank goodness, and we are procuring key locks, flooring, other things to get our internal customers, as I'll call them, into 242 after much effort, and I do want to thank Building Services for getting that and moving that forward. Again, we invited Train to come and present to you today to give you those updates, and pretty much that takes into account all that's been kind of going on at Public Works. Again, I gave you our next meeting date. I will gladly answer any and all questions, and I will take this moment to wish everyone here a very Merry Christmas. So, with that, any questions?
I have a question. I was just wondering on the leases on the towers, Verizon and AT&T, and especially Verizon with Roses Hill. Do we get any more information about when they make those inquiries about those leases? As you know, that region self-service is non-existent. So does that mean that Verizon requesting a lease on Roses Hill means that there might be an improvement in cell coverage? Do we get any of that kind of information or context?
So the first question that is usually asked within Public Works when that comes through is exactly that.
Yeah.
You know, is there a ability, or would there be a receptive audience, so to speak, to increasing coverage for not even an increase in rentals to that effect? So that discussion is
part of the
discussion that we have.
But we don't really know what they're doing.
At this point, the answer is no.
Okay.
I wish I had more concrete,
Sure.
to bring back on that.
Yep.
And the same is also true for Morris, correct? And we've been pushing for this.
We have, and again, we have really, the committee has really taken a focus of trying to not only increase, but to establish good wireless coverage in and around the Morris area. And it is a real challenge. It is a real challenge. I mean, we have gone as far as to throw out there free space if in like kind of services and things like that. So it's a challenge. We're constantly probing that issue. I hope somewhere along the line, we don't know how the committees will shake out, at the new year, but if I could make a recommendation to keep Public Works the same, they're a great, I won't say well-run, but well-formed committee, and if that could be done, I think you'll see some good things in the ensuing year.
Just
Oh.
to build.
Make
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, and this is just to put it out there, that when you talk about the salt and the price for the salt, and it's always going up, there's technologies out there and studies being done, I know up in Lake George and Warren County, on reducing the amount of salt that actually goes on the roads, and just wondering if we're doing anything to kind of move the needle towards that.
So I think Representative McCarty brought up about the pre-treatment of brines, and we did have a great discussion with Rich Brimmer, and looking at potentially, is that something Otsego County could do, would do. There were some discussions as to the startup, having to actually have the storage facilities. Keith, if I forget anything, jump in. But there was the storage facilities, there's the actual making of the brine, and of course then the dispensing of the brine. And if I also remember, topography has a lot to do with that. And so it was something that we have looked at, and especially I think, and again, Keith brought up our roads around the lake area. The advantages to that are less salt and or brines potentially that are used, And key to that is pre-treatment, is coming out ahead of, the storm. So we have talked about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there is also apparently grant money available to help do this.
Yep.
And maybe there's grant money available through the Susquehanna River Basin
Yep.
or something.
that's a
And
good
if we even did just 1 or 2 trucks to do like Murphy Hill up over from the hospital and around the lakes, just to try it out and see what. The state does it all the time. I mean, before the storm, they went down through just dumping clear salt down before it even started snowing. So it may not keep the roads bare, but it makes the roads bear up faster as you plow along. So.
Michelle, I think you wanted to
Michelle's
say
next,
something.
yeah.
Oh, well, Representative Wilbur, are you going to talk about Brine? Because I'm back
Otherwise,
on
but go
the
ahead.
tower leases. So just as a, maybe to try to clarify with the tower leases, the additional leases that we are entering into agreements with are for the towers that are already desirable. It's for other carriers on those towers. It's not to get out to the towers in the less populated areas. So.
Do you have something, Dan?
I was going to make a comment on the brine, but also quickly on the towers. I think it's important to note that Rob O'Brien is actively pursuing coverage in all areas of the county as much as we can possibly squeeze out. It's a difficult task. But as far as brine, the other thing to keep in mind is that just like salt, you have to store it in the locations that it's convenient. So it's not a magic fix. There's infrastructure that goes along with that.
Good point.
So I'd just like to point out, I think a lot of people hear brine and they immediately think fracking fluid. This is not the type of brine we're talking about.
No, it's salt mixed with water,
Yeah.
that's
Right.
right.
We passed a
But
resolution.
it still has to be mixed, it still has to be
Well, you can
stored.
get it delivered already mixed.
Correct, but you have to store it.
Well, you have to have a tank, but,
Right.
yeah.
Typically it's a 3,000 gallon tank.
I think it has to be bigger than that, but whatever.
Hence the reason we have discussions in Public Works.
Anything else, Public Works?
I just have a question. With the brine, do the trucks need to be retrofitted to scrub that?
Yeah, they have saddle tanks.
So all the towns that we have contracts with that would be sanding, salting the roads would have to be retrofitted as well, so.
So the discussion that we had is right, to push that out to the towns at this point, I don't think makes a lot of fiscal sense. This was taking it internally and doing those that we have, as Otsego County, our direct control over, that we maintain, and it isn't under the snow and ice contracts currently.
But if there's grant money, that would be the time to apply for
Well,
the
I
towns as
think we
well.
want to try to test it out first.
Well,
see
yeah,
how
he's
it's
talking
gonna
about
work.
test
Yeah.
first,
Right.
just
See,
locally here.
not go out full bore with it, just 1 or 2 trucks to see what happens,
Well, there's plenty of testing out there. I mean, it's been used for a while now.
The state's
But
been using it.
again, it's infrastructure. Saddle tanks on the trucks, storage tanks to store it.
Hopefully the grant.
Right. So it's,
And then again, do we go and, I mean, we're talking about a potentially new facility, so would that be the time to have the storage there as opposed to the current? There's a lot of moving parts to this project.
Well, I think Lake George, the lady I talked to, she said that they saved 40% on overtime and 40% on salt consumption, and cut down their deer accidents like 30%, because the deer aren't hanging along the side of the road eating the salt. So if you're saving that kind of money, it's kind of worth a little investment. You know, it's a nice car.
no, don't give me that.
KIJ, Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Chairman Bliss. We had a report at our meeting from, well, just a quick check-in from Sid Loeffler, who's been acting as a Veteran Services Director with Dennis Clark being away for the year, and we just checked in with him and also did some fund transfers. We also had a report after the first season of operation for the Village of Cooperstown Trolley, with Leatherstocking Trolley doing the operations. I'm happy to report that the first year under their management, they did some more innovative outreach using digital medium and social media platforms. And also, the ridership was up 15%, which is in number figures about 40,000. Also, ticket sales were up by 12%, and that is a STOA revenue, which Tammy Harris has told us actually brings money into the county to help pay for the cost of the trolley. So, good news on Leatherstocking trolley. We did vote to begin the process of an increase in the occupancy tax of 2%, up to 2%, so 4% now, and to possibly go to a 6% max. It's our ask. We have to advocate for this in Albany. We have to reach out to our assemblyman. We have to get letters of support from the DMC. We have pretty much anyone who is in the process should write in for us, and our state senator and our assemblyman will advocate for us in Albany to get that approved. We also did amend the DMC contract, which you know is incentive based, so they get paid more the more they make in occupancy tax, to only be looking at the 4% as far as that 3-year contract goes. So if we do get an increase, it will not automatically bump up the contribution that we make to the DMC. We approved ORHA, the Otsego County Rural Housing Authority, to be a subrecipient for a $700,000 housing rehabilitation grant that the Department of Planning secured. And we also spent time interviewing 2 different consultants who responded to facilitate the energy plans facilitator position that we have $50,000 to pay them. So we spent quite a lot of time with these 2 different groups, and we've spent even more time discussing it. So hopefully we'll come to a agreement on which one of them will eventually help out the energy group formulating their community energy plan. I did attend the DMC board meeting on the 14th of November. If this is a good time for me to just bring you up to date on that. 3 board members are going off the DMC. They do have term limits. They do have to be off for a year before they can come back on. So we've already had people who are been nominated and put forward to sit on that board, so I feel it's in good shape going into the next year with some new leadership. Also, with the Schoharie County reconfiguring, we're getting 3 board members from Schoharie County. And here is some good news as well, that with the sharing of the shared administration costs, the $150,000 coming in from Schoharie County freed up. The bottom line for Otsego County is that $50,000 more was put into the marketing budget for Otsego County as a direct result of that shared services. Our next meeting is December 10th at 9 a.m. and I would like at this time in December to thank the IGA committee, Representatives Farwell, Shannon, Marietta, and Oberacker for doing such diligent work all year. And I appreciate all of the conversation that we've had and all of the work that we've done. And just a final roundup on the County Administrator Public Information Sessions. We did hold one in Oneana on the 14th of November, one at the courthouse here on the 19th. We had a moderate amount of, well, we had a very low turnout, but we were there and many of our colleagues were there, and lots of good discussion, good questions, and the League of Women Voters did facilitate that for us, and it worked out very well. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now.
The 40,000 riders for the trolley, that was $40,000.
$40,000. It was, I think it was $40,000 in revenue. That was a bump up from last year.
So that's good. It's nice to know that we took over that operation from the village where they were losing money hand over fist, and now we actually made it as a profitable enterprise.
Fees, because Garrett County had come in and
Right.
were paying their part. And I was surprised to hear that it was just going back into the marketing budget. I thought maybe we'd get it back, you know?
Well.
But that's fine.
They're building it.
Did that 50,000 go to some marketing initiative that has been woefully missing, and now we can have it, or is that just pumping up their
I
budget?
couldn't speak to that level of how it's being spent, but I can find out, but
Okay.
you won't be here.
Yeah, I just, you can call me up and tell me.
Oh, okay.
But no, I
No,
think,
no,
I
but
think we
in
all need
marketing
to
in
know
general,
that.
I think they
Yeah.
just put it in the marketing line, and then they may just ramp up what we're doing.
Yeah, I think we're
don't
all sensitive to that kind of information during this budget season, you know?
Yeah, oh, right, but our contract had built in our amount.
Yeah,
so,
right, I understand
yeah.
that, but, okay, good.
All right.
Michelle, do you have?
I was just gonna say that I believe the reason for their decision that way has to do with the way the contract is structured. So they're getting a certain percentage of our bed tax revenue regardless
Right.
of what their admin costs are. So now they're just saying they can shift some of their admin costs will be less, so they can shift it over, but they, as per the contract, they're still gonna get the same amount.
I feel like a broken record on destination marketing and bed tax, but at the end of the day, I mean, to generate bed tax, we have to make an investment in destination marketing. So there's this default about, that they are generating more money, so some of that money should come back to the county. It does come back to the county. It comes back through the contract with them and the way it's structured, and it comes back through sales tax. So I just, not saying this in a negative way to the comments at all, but just reminding, that bed tax is truly the one component that offers revenue growth for Otsego County through tourism, directly through the bed tax dollars and through sales tax. And destination marketing is our true, best tool and option we have, and that I hesitate to call it consolidation, but this agreement bringing Schoharie County into kind of our success, and it really leverages and it really gives us a lot more opportunity to grow this entire region, and we benefit from it.
Oh, sure.
Agreed. Human Services, Representative Coden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You've all read the minutes, any questions?
Perfect.
No, just kidding. But it was a quick meeting. As I've said every November and December for years, the DSS provides a lot of services through contracts with local agencies, a lot of required services through contracts, and October sometimes, but certainly November and December, we approve those contracts, and we're also moving to the point where many of them are now 2 or 3 year contracts, maybe 1 or 2 or even 5 year contracts. So we have less of this kind of thing to do every year. But we did a bunch of them, and one of them was with S&P Security, which is the company that's been providing security at the Meadows for a number of years now. And we extended their already extended and temporary contract through the end of February, which makes 14 months of temporary extended contract with this security company, because we have not been able to come up with a coherent plan for security at 242 Main. And that, as you know, you can't help to notice that I get a little upset about that, because this is something that has dragged on way too long, and department heads whose departments depend, many departments depend on this kind of decision which hasn't been made, and it's very frustrating and disruptive to those departments. And you all got the email I sent out with the plan for a temporary task force to solve this. I again recommend that be done, and since I'm leaving, I could take this shot. If we had a county manager, I wouldn't have had to send that email. It would all have been done. it's a project that takes lots of committees and lots of departments, and we have historically not done that very well. It still drags on. Well, our fiscal health in DSS anyway is good. Coming up to the end of the year, which is always a good thing. There's always some kind of big hit that could show up out of the blue in any given year, and that has not happened again this year. Approved some non-mandated trainings. We talked about a glitch in creating the proposed budget in September, which included some revenue for a couple of positions at DSS, but for some reason did not include the expenses. From what I know at this point, and we still don't know why that happened, but that's part of the adjustments that we've had to make here at the last moment. Filled some vacancies, and our next meeting will be on December 10th at 9:30 a.m. in the third floor conference room upstairs, and you're all welcome. Now, any questions? Yes?
I have a statement I'd like to thank Representative Putin for his years of service to this county and wish him well.
Thank you. Thank you. And, thank you for saying that, because I forgot, I didn't write it down. If I don't write it down, it doesn't exist. But I just want everybody to know, once again, first of all, that we had a great committee and worked very hard on a lot of issues. But the leadership team at DSS is just astounding. It never ceases to amaze me every month. Certainly Eve at the helm, and Lisa and Deb and Mary Jane. Hard jobs. And they do a great job. So I just want to get that in the minutes.
Anything else? Okay. PSLA. Representative Wilbur.
I'll be headed today.
Even got the mustache.
We met on November 18th, and Public Defender Michael Trossett with Rebecca Talbot came in. Rebecca is the grants administrator, and they gave funding updates on opportunities they are pursuing with the goal of reducing local costs for staff and equipment for 18B Council at First Arraignment, seat CAFA, as it's affectionately called, and the centralization arraignment part of CAP, including but not limited to the funding through the Office of Indigent Legal Services, OILS. Mr. Trossett requested approval to accept the grant funds from OILS in the amount of $167,055. He also requested approval of contract of Rural Law Center of New York in the amount of $40,000 for a term from January 1st through December 31st of 20, I believe that's in the resolutions today. Provide appellate representation, Representative Oberak moved for that, passed. Attorney Trossett requested approval to purchase a new printer copier. He also requested approval to enter into an annual agreement with the Public Defender Case Management System database in the amount of $2,000 for a term from November of this year to November of next year. Most of the things he requested, if not all of them, are all covered with grant money. Requested approval to reimburse the attorney Myosk in his office for expenses incurred. He took out of his own pocket to go for legal continuing education or a seminar on related legal matters. That's all also covered under budget and grant money. Sheriff Devlin came in with Under Sheriff Allison. He requested approval to hire Corrections Sergeant at Step 4. That was approved. The sergeant is coming from another county and comes with experience. Sheriff Devlin requested approval to hire a corrections nurse at Step 2, continuing to have difficulty obtaining correction nurses. they get into that position, they decide it's not the job for them. I'm going to skip over the part about the jail repairs because Representative Operacker already covered those. Commissioner, DSS Commissioner Bobolis was present as well, and we discussed with Public Works, what she had discussed with Public Works Committee, Human Services Committee, and the Public Safety and Legal Affairs Committee about security at 242 Main. We're still wrestling with that. We also spoke about Mr. Naughton from probation would like to locate 2 officers at 242 Main, and that'll all figure into that scheme. District Attorney John Neal came in, requested approval to fill a vacant funded legal secretary position. That was approved. He also requested to fill the upcoming vacant funded child advocacy Senate coordinator position. That also was approved. And the committee with District Attorney discussed the future outcomes of recent changes to the New York State criminal law affecting discovery, bail, and the jail population. The new discovery rules is going to be quite challenging for both our district attorneys, our sheriff's office, and such to keep up with that. Child advocacy, Denise Oliver was in, requesting a transfer of $1,429.55 to personal services. That was approved. Probation, Dan Naughton came in, Director of Probation, discussed New York State changes in raise the age funding, stating that reimbursement opportunities that were once there are no longer available. So Mr. Naughton does not plan to hire an additional probation officer at this time, as was projected. And we went into executive session to discuss personnel issues. Emergency service, Art Klingler came in, gave the following update for the Fire Training Center. The RFP has been submitted again due November 19th, and it's due November 19th at 4 p.m., so that should be back in. Mr. Klingler reported he has met with stakeholders to discuss concerns regarding the state and future emergency medical services in the county. The committee and Mr. Klingler discussed various concerns without resolution. That's going to be another ongoing issue to provide emergency medical services in this county. There being no further business to discuss, it was adjourned until the next meeting is now December 16th, here on the second floor at 12:30 p.m. Any questions?
And I just have a question. Did the sheriff speculate on if everything went according to plan with the renovations, when prisoners would be moved back to this county?
No, there's no solid date because a lot of that has to be approved by Commission on Corrections. They have to come in with the final say-so.
Right, but
They're going to start.
within a month, 2 months, 3 months, because we have money in the budget for food that we don't need to have in there that could be used to pay for some of the other things we wanted to add.
Okay.
You know, it's, and actually for this entire month, we shouldn't have been expending any money. I was just wondering.
No, but they're going to start renovations on the roof, I believe the 19th. If I'm not mistaken on that.
Preliminary, some stuff has been done, but yes, yeah, hopefully
Yeah.
once we get the snow
Should have
off.
started on the 19th.
And that's about how long the project anticipated, because we know there'll be issues once they get up there.
Oh,
2 weeks? Give or take, yeah, I mean,
They've already got a good start on it.
yeah,
Probably did about a fourth of it,
yeah.
but now the weather held them back. Looks like it's warm week next week.
And I think you stated yesterday, you thought maybe February?
That's what I heard. You know, that possibly February, he wants to move them all in at the same time because there's a setback on the dorm renovations because of the two top units into the 20th of January, from what I'm told. So now that puts us the end of that month, and the amount of work they're planning on doing on the other side of the wall, I'm saying probably February. before they get moved back in.
But again, it's gonna come down to approval from Commission on.
Right, so it won't be sooner than then, and then in January, when the new criminal bail reforms come in, the projected decrease in population is 60% of that, so
Well,
60% of the food budget.
We've already discussed looking at that, how that's gonna affect, and that could affect a whole range of things.
Right. But definitely if they're not there, we don't have to feed them.
Or board them out.
Any other questions?
Well, I'm just wondering, I'm looking at the budget and as far as probation goes, we were gonna give him 2 new probation officers, but you're saying he doesn't need that now? Should we take it out
I
of the
didn't
budget?
say he didn't
or-
need it, he's holding off.
He
Well,
wasn't filling it.
but is it already in the budget and should we?
He's holding off, go ahead.
Okay, I think it's in the budget,
Okay.
for just in case, he's waiting to see
Alright.
how the caseload goes, but he wanted approval ahead of time.
Okay.
If it does occur, I think he's anticipating that 50% of that would be offset by, money coming from Raise the Age. So that's probably, I can't guarantee you, but I think that's also in the budget under revenue.
Yeah, I
So
think
it's
so,
not
yeah.
quite the
Okay.
impact that you would.
Okay, all right.
And I
Okay.
think this is the best approach to go ahead.
Part of it is we're taking, I think, a wait and see on how this Raise the Age is gonna affect. Again, a lot of it's an unknown.
Right.
I mean, there's projections, but we all know how they go. So I think it's more of a wait and see approach.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think what's happened with the funding with that is the state originally promised us
Right.
that they would reimburse, every department that's affected. And we just recently got information back that they're not funding anything.
There's a shot.
So,
Here we go.
I shouldn't say anything. I'm sure there's something that they're funding, but they're not funding what we thought they were going to fund. And so we're all trying to figure out how we're gonna do this. And it's gonna be a challenge. I mean, the new law changed on October 1st, and within 2 weeks, we had a very serious situation down in Worcester, and some of those people were Raise the Age people that went through probation or coming through my office. I mean, that was a lot of work. If that happened more frequently, it would be difficult.
It's gonna create a lot of challenges.
Anyone else? Alderman, Representative Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman Bliss. The committee met on November 18th, and we started our meeting with sort of a interdepartmental discussion between 2 of our coroners, Terry Knapp and Christian Schaefer, as well as Eve and Linda Steele from DSS. We were discussing areas where there are two departments intersect, primarily around burials of indigent folks. And we discussed eligibility for county assistance, as DSS has to provide some financial assistance for those burials. We talked about the fee for service schedule established in 2007, so at this point that schedule's a bit dated, and Eve recently spoke with the Leatherstocking Funeral Directors Association, and they expressed some of their concerns and thoughts about those items. So Eve's doing some more homework for us, and she'll make a recommendation to our committee on whether we revise that resolution. Further, they discussed the county-owned cemetery and whether or not we should kind of take a look at the parcel boundaries, reestablish them, look at property lines, plot mapping. So we're also doing some homework there, as that may be a resource that we're not using to its full potential. Terry Knapp also reported on his recent quarterly meeting with the Otsego and Schoharie County Child Fatality Review Team, and the work that they've done around advertising around teen suicide prevention and safe sleep conditions for infants. Heidi Bond of the Health Department met with us. We approved a grant funding or receipt of grant funding for the Public Health Preparedness and Response to Bioterrorism Plan. It's about $50,000. We met with the Creating Healthy Schools and Communities team, and they gave us an overview of the past couple years. So they've been in operation since 2015. During that time, they provided about $113,000 in technical assistance and resources to schools and communities in our county, promoting local school wellness policies, increased access to affordable and healthy foods, adoption and implementation of complete street policies. Some of these initiatives included healthier vending machines at schools, stand-up desks, school gardens, water fountain retrofits for water bottles, farm-to-table school foods, and other items as well. So they've primarily been focusing in Richfield Springs and Otsego school districts, as they were areas of high need. We heard from Sue Matz, and we again approved payments for criminal actions charges in about $26,000. Good news was it was reported that's probably the last of those payments we'll be making in the foreseeable future. So it's good because they're kind of tough to predict. Just as the Human Services Committee approves a lot of contracts in November, December, we do as well. We approved some 1-year, some 2-year, and 3-year contracts. A number of them were 100% reimbursable from state and federal taxes, funds, as well as fees. Skip over the specifics on those. We also approved funding of $425,000, 100% state aid to LEAF for school-based prevention and community education. And some 3-year contracts, including RSS, Rehabilitation Support Services, and that is, again, state aid and fees supported, as well as Friends of Recovery. Those were sizable grants, so about $1.8 million to RSS and over $600,000 to Friends of Recovery. We also approved the receipt of System of Care funds, and that included about $200,000 to Bassett Research Institute. Again, these are all federal System of Care grant-funded programs. About $500,000 to ONC BOCES, and about $92,000 to Parsons Child and Family Services. We also approved 1-year contracts for psychiatric services. I think that was the end of our contracts. The meeting concluded with a discussion with Don Smyers from Cornell Cooperative about the county budget appropriation, as well as expectations moving into the 2020 calendar year. The next meeting is scheduled for December 9th at 9 a.m.
Any questions? Swett, Representative McCarty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met on November 21st. Sharon gave the monthly solid waste report. For October, we had 3,911 tons of solid waste. That was down 53 tons from last year, and we ended up with a credit of $1,832. Recycling, we had 340 tons collected in October. That was down 57 tons at a cost of $158 a ton with a total of $54,000 for the month, so recycling is expensive. Jordan Clements was in and gave his report. We talked about bag fee and decided to send the state legislator a letter on our concerns. There's a resolution today, 304, to set the 2020 tip fee. Basically, it's all the same except for 4 changes. The tip fee for county solid waste is going to go from $80 to $87 a ton. The scale minimum charge is going to go up to 460 pounds for $20. Recycling commercial haulers is going to go from $55 to $75. And the bag fee for a 30-gallon bag of container is gonna go from $4 to $4.25. That is resolution 304. Also, there's resolution 310, establishing the solid waste user fee. That's gonna stay the same at $20. Basically, that's pretty well the drift of the meeting. I want to thank the committee for all they've done this year. It's been kind of tough with the price of recycling going sky high and a lot of juggling around. I personally want to thank Gary. It's been a pleasure working with you and for the last few years on the board, and you're going to be missed. And we meet again on December 12th at 9 o'clock.
Any questions?
I just had a question. I just wondered if after we, kind of that multi-year process of approving PACE financing, have we heard about any, and that probably is a question for Karen, but.
Yeah, or Danny, you got anything on that?
Have we heard, is anyone investigating PACE, or are we getting any?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of people, there's interest in the program. We're not aware of any actual applicants at this time, but it's been mentioned in multiple subcommittees of the Energy Task Force. Multiple energy service providers are aware that we've authorized it. So I think that it's only a matter of time till someone actually jumps on it. The issue is finding an existing entity who is willing to invest in substantial building upgrades right now. So we would need a little bit more ongoing development to encourage a kind of reinvestment in our infrastructure. So traditionally, if we see action in the upper floors in Oneonta, that would make sense. But a lot of it is trying to establish the connection between the design engineers who are we usually work for private vendor, and with the public entities or promoting PACE, like the planning department and the county energy task force.
I keep blanking on the name, but the solar energy company down in River Road, they're looking into some projects.
Revolution Solar.
Yeah, Revolution Solar, I don't know if you remember that. I know they are working on some projects that haven't got to fruition yet, but they're working on. Any other questions? Admin, Representative Kennedy.
Thank you, Chairman Lewis. We met on November 22nd following the board budget workshop. Public defender came in, and as Representative Wilbur told us, we've heard much of the same report. Some of the good news is that they are working on reimbursements for up to 2 years back on some of the money that's available for past 18B claims, and also claims for expenses incurred due to the council at first arraignment policy. So the good news is that these claims are being investigated, and money should be coming back in to reimburse us for those expenses. Community Services Representative Martha Quackenbush came in, and we renewed contracts, more of them. I think we did 3 or 4. The clerk of the board presented us with the mortgage tax renewal, and also the paperwork to extend our 4% sales tax at 4%. So every 2 years, this is something that we do. So we are in shape to get that renewed at 4%. Highway, we heard a bit about highway already. Rich Brimmer just kept us apprised of bridge repairs that are ongoing, and we transferred some funds to make the appropriate payments. Planning, as I mentioned in the IGA report, we named the ORHA as the subrecipient for the CDBG funds. Tolga Morawski from the Land Bank presented to the administration committee, and you'll find in resolution number 312 today that we were we're forgiving the back taxes and foreclosure expenses on 26 Canada-Rago Street in Richfield Springs, which the land bank has actually had received as a gift when it was sort of behind in taxes. They knocked down the structure that was on the property at an expense to them of about $20,000, and they do have plans to sell it to them. So.
Negotiations, Representative Oberacker.
Nothing to report. I beat you, Gary.
Delayed by the weather, and ended up not.
Okay, and strategic planning.
Yes, we met on November 15th. Kathy it was Keith and I bringing up the committee this time. And we met with Kathy Senate Gardner and had a good discussion with her about kind of what we could integrate into the committee work plan for public safety and legal affairs. And then we also, is she fall under admin or PSLA? I'm forgetting.
PSLA.
PSLA, okay, I got that right. And then we met with Hank, who falls under admin, to talk with him about some of the real property services ideas that he would like to see represented in the strategic committee work plan for administration. And then our next meeting is December 19th. Hoping to meet with Rob Picorni about some of the IT ideas or focus areas for him. And we're just trying to push hard. I just trying to develop these drafts before year end for admin and public safety and legal affairs at this point. So they're at least in draft stages, and try to push those out to the respective committees, and then we'll work into the new year in terms of finalizing those work plans. So, but I think we're capturing good feedback, and I'll say that, you know, these work plans I think will be invaluable not only for new board members coming on to the Board of Representatives, but also as we look to the future with the county administrator position. I think we've documented a lot of a lot of the priorities, a lot of the ideas, and I think these work plans are going to be very helpful to the committees, but also as we look at how we might best leverage this new position regarding the county administrator. And I just want to say too, this is always kind of a sad meeting in a way, because it's the last full meeting of the year, and I know we're all kind of thanking people, but I want to say to Kathy, I definitely enjoyed my tenure, and I've learned a lot in participating with you, especially. I think you've done tremendous service to the county, and I think that your involvement with the county has definitely left a mark, and in very many very positive ways. And I think it's always sad to see a longstanding board member go, and so I just wanted to say that, because with the strategic planning committee we wouldn't have this opportunity if under your guidance as chair we didn't undertake the strategic plan prioritization plan. So you set that in order, or made that possible. So I think as we look to the future of Otsego County, and we build on that prioritization plan and with the committee work plans, I just wanted to thank you for that. So, and I don't want to leave Liz and Gary out, but I think I don't definitely Liz I feel like Gary and Liz have also been very positive in helping with this strategic planning initiative. But I thank you again, Kathy, for helping set that course for us.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Well, one of the things for me, even after 12 years, we've had boards that have been 7-7 quite a few times, sometimes. But I've always believed that everybody that sits in this room has the best interest of the county at heart. We have different ideas of how we should get to where we want to go, but I think that it has remained collegial, and should be a lesson to people at the national level. I mean, I harken back to the Reagan Tip O'Neill thing. They fight like heck on priorities and then go out and have a drink afterwards. And as long as we keep that atmosphere, I think it'll be to the benefit of the county.
Keep the me in particular.
Drinking going.
See you there at 3.
So I agree, I'm going to say this later, but the three of you leaving sad, and hopefully your replacements will have big shoes to fill, and they'll be up to the task. I'm sure they will. And thank you all for your work.
Kathy was here when I was still a department head.
That's right. Yeah, Greg Rillett convinced me to run for one term in 2008.
I'd also like to thank all of you for all the work you did this year. I think we had an extremely productive year. And there's a lot more to do, and hopefully we'll be able to accomplish that as we move forward. Thanks. So now we'll move on to all of these. Works standing committees, any special committees that need to speak?
Budget?
Budget, we could do now, or do you want to do that when we actually vote?
Well,
Let's do that now.
do that now? Thank you, Chairman Blitz. So, as long as we're handing out kudos, I would like to give Liz a prize for the person who was not on the budget committee, who came to the most budget meetings.
Thanks,
But your input was very appreciated, and I appreciate, your work on IGA as well. And change is hard, and it's too bad sometimes, but life takes us where we have to go. So you will be missed. Know that sometime when you're sitting around
I'll
on
miss you
Tuesday morning. I'll be at the farmer's
I'll
market.
miss
You
you,
can find me there. So, budget, we met on the 7th and did this year's budget process was a real challenge. I found it much more challenging than previous years. But we did spend a lot of time on it, and I feel that everything that we ultimately decided was we did not come to those decisions lightly. They were weighed, they were balanced, they were re-weighed and rebalanced. I think that we came up with a budget that does not exceed the tax cap. That was a goal. I would like to pull the budget at this time, number 293, because we do have a couple of final adjustments that we will be making. We met on the 7th, as I said, we met again on the 22nd in the morning. Again, thank you all of the people who were on the budget committee and all of those who came and participated. I think we got a lot of really good input. We had a lot of very good conversation, and we made the decisions ultimately that led us to an under the tax cap budget, and that culminated with our final get-together on the night of the budget hearing on the 26th. But we did come up with ultimately a budget that takes less fund balance than we did last year. So this is where we ended up. So that's the budget report.
Yeah, I just, those of you who haven't heard from Alan Ruffles or about Alan Ruffles for a while, you may not know that every budget meeting he was with us and worked with us by the Zoom technology that the Land Bank has facilitated us having, with Laurie being able to be the technological wizard to make it work and keeping it working. And every single meeting he was with us, he was prepared, he had spreadsheets to put on the screen that we could see and understand, and I was just thrilled to see it. Once he came from his quarters in a shipping crate in Dubai. Another time he seemed to be out in the middle of nowhere in Kenya, and it worked every time, and I was just thrilled about the technology that enabled us to do that, and also the fact that Alan is still really very much involved in the budgeting and in the financing here. So thanks to everybody who made that possible.
I agree, Gary. Perfect. Yeah. Alan and Andrew worked together in a pretty seamless team to to bring together the numbers that we needed to put together for the budget, so it worked out well. Although I'm still wondering from a horticultural standpoint what those trees were behind them. So maybe I'll be able to find them in a book.
They won't grow there too wet.
No, they won't grow here, but it would be nice to know what they were.
Okay, any other special committees, reports? Outside meetings? One thing I did neglect earlier, former Board Representative Joseph Kenyon from District 6 in Maryland, Worcester, Decatur, passed away recently. He served on the board for 19 years, from 1970 to 1989. So just like to recognize his passing. So if we take a quick break, I think, and then we'll move on to our special resources.
Came. How are you?
Hearing none, no discussion. Roll call vote.
Frazier? Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? Aye. Stammel?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Overacker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
Aye.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Koenig?
Aye.
Martini?
Aye.
Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Just turning through.
293. This is just to accept the amendment.
This is to accept the amendment. We have 5,789 ayes, 0 noes, 439 absent. The amendment has passed. Now we vote on the budget, 2019 or 2020 budget as amended. Motion,
Also,
second. Any discussion?
yeah, I'd like to.
Okay.
I was curious over the last 14 years I sat on this board, what the budget was doing, and I asked Andrew to research it. Well, it was quite interesting. There was 7 years that we had an increase of less than 1%. There was 4 years that we had an increase of 2%. The last 2 years, we've had a total increase for the 2 years with this budget of over 6%. But then I thought, well, geez, that's a lot.
Hello.
You know, and then I looked back through these numbers, back in 2013 and 14, we had appropriations of 13 of 124 million. In 2014, it was 125 million. So it kind of, I was thinking 119 was probably the highest, but apparently it wasn't. So, I mean, it's just, it's really interesting what, you know, the tax levy increase has been over the years, and these last 2 years it's been the highest. So, you know, I think it's something we have to be careful with, using fund balance, and we really have to keep an eye on this. So that's just my comments.
I've got a similar email. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that if the funding remains in there at the current level for the county manager position, I will vote no on the budget for the reasons I expressed before. It's seriously underfunded. If you're going to do this position, I won't be voting for it. And I do just want to throw in that should this position become a reality, I repeat what I said before, that we should adjust the salaries of the representatives. And I'm not just saying this because I'm no longer going to be there, but they're, you know, clearly our duties that they will no longer be responsible for. And I know that we should then transfer the funds to find help for whoever walks in on July 1, because it'll be a nightmare.
Anyone else? I'm trying to find that email so I can compare, but Keith's point, I think, is well taken, but if you research the years, and I can't find that email so I can speak to it exactly, but there's several factors involved in that. One is, the biggest one, of course, is the closing of the manor. Took a huge amount of money out of the budget, and the taxes that year remain relatively stable. Someone mentioned earlier the number of highway employees that have about a third of what it was maybe 20 years ago. The deferred maintenance, we did our highway plan last year, said 70% of our highways are deficient. You know, the jail getting pushed off, the highway facility being pushed off, those things are all, were deferred, kicked down the road to keep that budget low. And now we have to address them. We can't defer them any longer. And we've done a lot of great things. I agree with Kathy. But there's a lot more we can do and it needs to be done.
I think we've been kicking cans for a long time.
Yeah, we can't keep kicking cans forever. Sooner or later, you gotta pay the piper. As we heard from Train earlier, you know, the heating units and the air units on this building are original from, you know, over 50 years, since the 60s. You know, sooner or later, you gotta pay the piper. And those days are here. And that's why the budget is starting to creep up. Because otherwise, you have a catastrophic failure like of the roof at the jail that costs us even more money. So, any other comments?
I guess I would just say I want to, well, thank everyone for having the will to address some of the cans that we've been kicking down. And I think this budget begins to address that. It's not, I intend to vote for this budget. It's not everything it's not how it would be if I made it myself. But I don't think any of us should expect that. And I think we've worked well together.
Agreed. Okay, roll call vote.
Frazier? Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? No. Stammel?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Overrecker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
Aye.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Koenig?
Aye.
Martini? Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
5,235 ayes, 554 noes, 439 absent. Resolution 293 passes. Okay, we can move on to the consent agenda now.
You do a power bag.
Somebody may need to do math.
Motion? Second?
Second.
There was a nine.
Any discussion on consent agenda? No, I discussed, I'm sorry. Roll call vote.
Frazier? Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? Aye. Stammel?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Overrecker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty? Wilbur?
Aye.
Koenig?
Aye.
Martini? Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
5,789 ayes, 0 noes, 439 absent. Consent agenda is passed.
Resolution 294, making appropriations for the conduct of Otsego County government for the year 2020. Kennedy, Overacker, Frazier, Koenig, Stammel, McCarty.
Discussion? Who pulled this one?
Yeah, why is this pulled?
You have to pull it because of the budget.
Because it goes with it.
It's effective as of 290.
So can we move to amend it to reflect how do you need this worded?
The way it is fine.
Yeah. Worded, okay.
We changed to 93, and this says we take 293 and use it for operations.
So all set, no more further comments? I'm told this can be an oral vote, all in favor? No?
No?
On the consent agenda?
This isn't consent.
No, this is the 294.
Oh, I'm sorry, on 294, yes, that can be the one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passed.
Resolution 304, authorizing the chair to establish 2020 tip fee and rate schedule for the Oneonta and Cooperstown transfer stations, McCarty, Kennedy, Hotnick, Lappin, Barlow.
Second?
Second.
I'm sorry, second. You get both?
We just need a second.
Second is Adrian.
For both of them.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Discussion.
So I pulled this, and I voted against it in SWET committee, so I just thought I would give everyone my explanation as to why. So Resolution 304, establishes tip fee and rate schedule for Oneonta and Cooperstown transfer stations. The one item I didn't agree with was the change for the per bag fee up to 30-gallon bag container went from $4 a bag to $4.25 a bag. So that doesn't sound like a big deal. But ahead of this, we had had a discussion about whether that would go up or not. And I had just assumed it wouldn't because per bag, because Casella takes in a lot more per bag than it pays out per ton. So just to break that down a little bit for everyone, if you assume that a bag of garbage weighs 35 pounds, then it would be 57 bags would be 1 ton of garbage. And so that means that Casella is currently bringing in $228 per ton for bags and paying, they have their expenses, which is around, well, they were charging us $79.75. So they're proposing to increase it to $4.25 per bag, which will mean they bring in $242 per ton, and we, the county, are proposing to increase our per ton rate to 87. So that's a difference of, the county is increasing it $7 per ton, Casella is increasing it $14 per ton to the customer who brings their bags to the southern or northern transfer station. And I didn't feel like that was a fair thing to do. So, and Casella said that they have increased costs, and one of the increased costs is because of our county changing our fee up to $87, means that on their commercial hauling side, they have that increased cost when they come into our transfer station on their commercial side. And I felt like that was not fair to shift that cost on their commercial side to the people who use the southern and northern transfer stations. So that was my reasoning. And I felt, and the other part was that, so other commercial haulers will have this increased fee that we're going up to 87, but they don't have this opportunity to make up their costs somewhere else. So they'll pass it on to their consumers, which is what we actually wanted to happen, but Casella doesn't have to. So that was one of my issues, and then the other is just to say that in this situation, it's our job to be the regulatory agency. Like, if this were NICEAG, it's our job to be the PSC. And so that was my rationale. And like I said, I have 4 very competent colleagues who all thought it was fine. But I just wanted to explain.
I didn't think it was fine, I just.
Okay, I'm just trying to give you credit.
Well, my thing was for the 3 towns that do this, outside of the northern and southern, they're gonna have to charge it. But they also don't have to do that, they have the options, they could go out to bid. Anybody could come in and do this. They're still gonna have to pay the town, whoever is the hauler is gonna have to pay the $87 to dump it, but yet a private person could come into those other 2 or 3 sites and charge the bag rate, whatever they think is right. Like Cherry Valley, I believe, doesn't have Casella for garbage. And Richfield and Springfield, which do, they could go to bid and go out for a better price. And I don't know, we can't do that at our transfer station?
We did.
We
We
did.
awarded
We
the
had a 5-year
contract to
contract.
Casella. But
Well, but that doesn't include the outer
no.
smaller ones.
No.
I kind of lost that. You know, they did tell us that they could charge $4 and raise it 16 cents and they would break even, but that was kind of a bad number. Instead of going down 10 cents, they went to 25 to make it even.
So we did talk about this for over an hour, just to put it in perspective. And we did gain much knowledge about how the an even further picture of how the solid waste and recycling business is operated. And it was, that would be my takeaway. I did learn a lot. I did vote to okay the $4.25 bag fee, on the understanding that it was part of their business operation plan. And I didn't have their financials in front of me, and I know Michelle did the math and made some sense of it, but at the end of the day, they could also have changed their fee for Freon removal from $28 to $32, depending on what vendor they were using. So we, as a vendor to them, kind of pushed the cost up. That was my understanding of it, so.
Any other comments?
As a frequent visitor to the northern transfer station, for me, I'm almost always bringing larger amounts of trash, and so they didn't change the $20 scale fee, or the up to 460 pounds. So, at the end of the day, there's a cost benefit analysis. So if they have more than 4 bags, probably they're probably better off doing a larger load of trash. So I see that they at least they didn't raise that fee. So there's another opportunity for people to not necessarily take a significant increase with the that 25 cents per bag. So I think there's another way of looking at the math on it. And the other thing I'll just say about I'm not at the Oneonta transfer station that often, but with Cooperstown, they have been making improvements. In terms of Casella as a contractor, they are working with there's now separation of glass, separation of cardboard, all these initiatives that Karen is pushing through solid waste and planning. And I think I understand they have operating costs, but if we think about our contract, these things aren't outlined in the contract, and so they are being a good partner from that perspective. So
I think your point is well taken. If you have more than 4 bags of trash, you might want to drive your truck over the scales, pay the $20 as opposed to paying 21 something. And generally, in most businesses, of which this is a business, there is a discount for volume.
That's what I do.
Right, there's more than 4 bags.
Right. Then just weigh them.
Yeah.
Instead of carrying.
Or have curb pickup, whatever.
Right. But this way, I feel over the years, we had the user fee was really high. Everybody was paying that through their taxes. Now, we've shifted that cost to the people that are actually using the service.
Well,
So the people in the western part of the county that were driving over to Shenango and using other places are not being forced to pay for that
The discussion for
twice.
a couple months was whether to raise the tipping fee or raise the unit fee. From $20 to 25 and keep the tipping fee down. Well, we opted to keep the user fee at 20 and raise the tipping fee, which is still lower than
Surrounding counties when we made the
Surrounding
initial, and you have counties, people from out of county coming to at least the southern transfer station. I don't know about the northern transfer station, that would be reaping the benefits of not having that tipping fee up where it should be and not paying a user fee at all.
Anything else? Okay, roll call vote.
Frazier, Farwell,
No.
Clark,
Aye.
Stammel,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Overecker,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Marietta,
Yes.
McCarty,
Aye.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Koenig,
Aye.
Martini, Lappin,
Aye.
Shannon.
5,286 ayes, 530 noes, 439 absent. Resolution 304 passes.
Resolution 313, transferring funds in various departments for 2019, Kennedy, Overecker, Frazier, Koenig, Stammel, McCarty.
Second?
And then- Can somebody second?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Discussion?
I would like to offer the resolution number 313 as amended to replace the figures that appear in the consent agenda.
So I think everybody got a handout with the corrections to that, how it wants to be amended. Somewhat lengthy. So we roll call vote, because this is one, to amend resolution 313.
Second that motion, the amendment, to amend.
Right.
Yeah. I can do that.
Amend first. Roll call vote.
Frazier, Farwell,
Aye.
Clark, Stammel,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Overecker,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Marietta,
Yes.
McCarty,
Aye.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Koenig,
Aye.
Martini, Lappin,
Aye.
Shannon.
5,789 ayes, 0 noes, 439 absent. Amendment to resolution 313 passes. Now we will motion to vote on 313 as amended.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
any discussion? Roll call vote.
Frazier, Farwell,
Aye.
Clark, Stammel, Kennedy,
Aye.
Overecker,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Marietta,
Yes.
McCarty,
Yes.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Koenig,
Aye.
Martini,
Aye.
Lappin,
Aye.
Shannon.
5,789 ayes, 0 noes, 439 absent. Resolution 313 as amended is passed.
Resolution 314, adopting a local law for the year 2019, a local law to establish the position of county administrator of the county of Otsego as amended. Kennedy, Overacker, Frazier, Koenig, Stammel, McCarty.
Second,
Second.
discussion.
That's fair.
Keith.
I've been honored to be on this board for 14 years and have had a lot of great people sit where you people are. And got to know a lot of good department heads and employees that this county has. But this board has been one of the most talented group of people I think I've sat with all these years. Like Catherine and Frazier said, you cover everything. And I feel that knowledge is here and that it's going to be hard to find somebody to replace all that. Not that we're all going to be gone, but I mean, it's just another person that somebody, instead of calling Dave Bliss, they're going to call whoever this or she manager is, and then it's going to go down the ladder and it's going to take off. There's not going to be any shorter minutes. Many meetings, like admin's going to be just as long, and all the technology that's out there where we can talk all over the world to any department head. Or the other day we talked to people down to the Meadows, they didn't have to come and sit in the hall for an hour and a half and wait to get. I just think they've talked about this manager for 14 years, and you can say, well, we didn't do anything. Well, the feeling was that things were going okay. We're not perfect, we're far from it, we make mistakes. I feel sorry for Maria and losing her home, but that happened, and it happened, and there's no way we can change that. But I really think that this is kind of a mistake. I would like to see it If we need to change the charter, change the charter. If we need to go to a vote of the people, go to the vote of the people. If we need to cut this board and redistrict. But to go out now and try to find somebody, because we got $75,000 gonna be here for a half a year, they're not gonna learn and take over this county in 3 years. And it gets political, I think, and I just, every call I've had from the people in my district aren't in favor of this. I mean, I'd like to hope I'd got one that was once in a while, but I didn't. But I just got a bad feeling about it. But you people underestimate yourselves. All you got to do is your job, and you've done a good job of it for the last 2 or 3 years. We've had a lot of problems. You talk about planning. You can't plan when you're going to get a flood. You can't plan when your bridge is going to go out. You can't plan when a road washes out, like we've had 2 of them on the east side of Otsego Lake, and it just, you deal with it. In the jail, you deal with it, and I think you've done a good job. So I'm not supporting this.
I appreciate, peace and rights. I also agree that we have an extremely talented group of representatives. But I feel like our talents are hamstrung by a lack of coordination, a lack of planning, a lack of overall organization of personnel. I feel like there's a lot more we can be doing. So it's not a question of are we doing good or bad. It's not a binary choice. It's a matter of can we do better. And so, for instance, I would say that we have, one of the larger road networks in our region, and yet we have no capital improvement plan to maintain our roads. We have, millions of dollars in physical assets in our buildings. Again, no capital improvement plan to manage our building assets. We contract with a number of organizations. We have no point person monitoring the performance or deliverables on those, contracts. We privatize economic development. But again, we don't take as full advantage of that as we could. And yes, we've, done an amazing job. But as far, in my kind of 2 years on the board, I feel like the difficulties of coordinating work amongst 3 committees, for instance, for 242, or, coordinating the shelter's approach to the county for funding. I feel like, having somebody to kind of help, organize, herd the cats and get everybody organized will enable the boards to put in more work and put in work more efficiently. I feel like there's a lot of things that we sit in meetings that could be solved much faster and allow us to take on like the big issues like the shared highway transit facility, the implementation of our hazard mitigation plan, which the draft is available and we really have to reckon with. And then also to take a look at kind of our how it needs as far as housing, raising revenue, increasing the bed tax to pay for road improvements, etc. The list goes on, and I feel like our talents as legislators would be better served to focus on preparing for that and allow the administrator to take on the day-to-day work.
Go ahead. Can I say one more thing? Sure. Everyone should listen to their parents.
You would love my dad.
I don't think you want that. My parents were like super socialists.
I don't need an explanation, Danny. I know you like to make explanations, but I don't need one. I just made a comment.
Hold on, I need to write a 90-page report about why, I disagree with you.
Well, then you should come more to these meetings. So we wouldn't have much time to write that report.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right.
Yeah, number one, I too at this point would like to say thank you to Gary, to Kathy, and to Liz for serving. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. I mean, it's not an easy position. We've all know what we all sometimes have to deal with. Kathy made the comment, we ought to be able to fight like hell and have a drink afterwards. So Kathy, I'm available afterwards.
I'm there.
But I do appreciate your commitment to this county and to the board, and want to thank you personally for that. So I'm going to be voting for the county manager today, and I was speaking to Representative Marietta, and I always have kind of a useless story that kind of goes along with this to make my point, so I didn't want to disappoint, but I'll do it relatively quickly so that we can all move on to this vote. So the U.S. Standard Railroad gauge, that's the distance between the rails, is 8 feet, 8.5 inches. Now that's an exceedingly odd number. Why was the gauge used? Because that's the way they were built in England. And the US railroad were built by English expatriates. So why did the English build them that way? Because the first rail lines were built by the same people who built the pre-railroad tramways. And that's the gauge they used. Why did they use that gauge then? Because the people who built the tramways used the jigs and the tools that were used for building wagons. And they tried to use other space. If they tried to use other spacing, the wagon wheels would break on some of the long distance roads in England. That's because of the spacing of the wheel ruts. So who built the old real or rutted roads? The first long distance roads in Europe and England were built by the Imperial Rome for its legions. The roads have been used ever since. And the ruts in the roads, well, initially the ruts were, which everyone else had to match for fear of destroying their wagon wheels, were first formed by the Roman war chariots. And the Roman chariots, they were unlike any matter in wheel spacing. When the space shuttle was sitting on, would have preferred to make them a bit fatter. But the SRBs had to be shipped by train from the factory to the launch site. The railroad lines from those factories that run through the tunnels in the mountains had to fit the SRBs through the tunnel. And the tunnel is slightly larger than the railroad track. And the railroad track, as we all know, is about as wide as 2 horses' assets. So the major design feature of this arguably the world's most advanced transportation system was determined over 2,000 years ago by the width of a horse's backside. That's because it has always been done this way. When something is always done this way, it doesn't necessarily mean it is well conceived. It does not always mean that it is pertinent to the times where we are today. And so the analogy I would like is that I believe things have worked well in the past. It does not mean that they can't work well or better in the future. And I am absolutely in favor of moving forward with the manager. And Representative Marietta, there's your story to make your day. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Speechless.
I don't have a story. I do have a dad who Keith thinks I should. Well, so some of the things that I've been practicing on, obviously at home, we do want to, his points were exactly that. You guys have been doing a lot of work, and a lot of good work has been done. And under Kathy's leadership, many great strides were made, as Ed relayed in his report. I just, and when we began this odyssey, for me, I had remember people asked me when I was running for the county board in 2015, what are your thoughts about county manager? Oh, well, I don't think we need one. I think it would be more of a burden on the taxpayers and so forth. After having done the due diligence, met with counties who have managers, gone to the NISAC conferences and spoken to those managers and discussed some of the work that they do, even having them come here to talk about the work that they do, that I think that their best role would be as a facilitator. And we all know that I do think this county board has an incredible amount of talent and resource and skill and determinedness and fortitude. And I think that a county administrator is the one who's going to work with those talented individuals to make something that is bigger than we are. I don't know exactly how it will look. We know that we will build it and craft it as we go, going forward, if we're lucky, if it passes today. to have a transition to this new position. I think that we, as government has gotten complicated, if we look at the 1993 and 92 work, they were talking about a $33 million budget. Now we're up over 115, go almost to 120, almost 4 times bigger. I feel that the reps could use someone to help form us into a cohesive unit, and we do have a chair who does that, but I feel this position will augment that and help us to meet those challenges that are coming and coordinate among departments as we've discussed. And I think it's a necessary thing for changing times. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. Gary?
Well, Kathy mentioned us paying ourselves more and doing less. You remember I was opposed to the pay increase. So I agree there, except I don't agree with the doing less part. Keith was talking about committee meetings getting shorter. Ed's email talked about the county manager having to do long-term planning and day-to-day operations. That's not where we're going. That's not the point here. The point is for the county manager to do day-to-day operations, to do the approvals and things that we spend hours doing at Edmond, and for committees to do what we as board members, as legislators, were elected to do, which is planning, prioritizing, policy. Keith's right. You can't plan for a catastrophic failure of a road, but you can have a fund that you've planned for 5 years that might address address that. You can plan for the deterioration of a highway garage. You can plan for the adaptive reuse of a huge office building we own in the middle of our biggest city. You can plan for an aging out public safety building. That's really what my vision of where you folks are going in the future, which is more long-term discussions, more visions, more of the kind of thing that Andrew and his committee has been doing, to take those committee work plans and take a look at them and build them out, put meat on the bones, so that when something happens that is catastrophic, we know what to do because we've already planned for it. And these admin meetings, which spend hours and hours and hours simply approving one thing after another, unanimously, can move perhaps to what is on that list of admin responsibilities, which is policy. And we haven't had time to do the policy, to work on those policies, because we've been spending, I mean, it was just, I had to leave after 6 hours of the last meeting. That's just not what we were elected to do. We were not elected to approve budget transfers and fill vacancies. That's not our job. Our job is to prioritize and to plan to develop policies for the future.
Anyone else?
I just, the one thing I think that, to echo Gary's mention of vision, I mean, that's why we're doing this. I mean, it's not about replacing the roles of the County Board of Representatives. It's about giving Otsego County a better opportunity to address the challenges we're facing as a county. In terms of the point to the earlier comment in the public comments, our population base, do we want to go another 10 or 20 years and be the county that reckons back to the Civil War and our population base not changing? How do we change that? We have bright spots throughout the county, but nothing is coordinated, and this gives us an opportunity to leverage and really build on the tools and the other partnerships and Otsego County's infrastructure. We need more help, and this gives us an opportunity. We've never tried it. We can't continue to say, the status quo is working, because we've come to basically a certain plateau. And to try to take a next step and build on what we've done over all these years, we need another tool. And I look at the county administrator as giving us another way to to move to that next level and really prioritize and focus in on those areas that we as a county board of representatives feel that will bring the most return on investment. And that's the bottom line at the end of the day. It's making Otsego County better, and we have to agree, somewhat as we move into this kind of unknown future, what that means to us. But I think that's the exciting opportunity.
I am supportive of voting for this law today. I think given the complexities of running a county in 2019 in New York State, it requires having a full-time professional manager on the ground every day, doing the coordination, the work that needs to be done to keep us on track, and yes, to move us to the next level. I think the value that will come back to the county in greater efficiencies and income, and hopefully a growing economy and tax base, I think will show that exceeds the value of, or the cost of this position. I really appreciate IGA's hard work on this. I know it was a long process and required at least double meetings every month for all of you, so thank you for that. I think some of the things that came out of the process were concerning to me. The survey results from the department heads not being supportive of it. Obviously, I think there's still work to do there. But just because if we do approve this today, doesn't mean we're filling it automatically right away. I think we will have time to work with our department heads to determine what their needs are and how we can do that transition, make any adjustments. But I think it is time. I think that this will put us on an even better track for the future, and I'm supportive of it. And I also heard today talk about changes in numbers of representatives. I think it is something to examine at some point. And one of our petitioners today talked about the importance of the census and reapportionment. I think when we get those census results back in 2021 and do reapportionment, we should consider changing the number of representatives as well. That should be part of the discussion.
Anyone else?
I'll just end with, the size of our budget has increased, have the tasks increased. You buy a car at $50,000 isn't any more than when it was $10,000. So the size of the budget is not so much as scope of the budget and what it can count. Getting somebody and keeping somebody in this position will be difficult for us, especially at the salary. We will get somebody on their way up or on their way out, most likely. And you look to Oneonta, where they're paying $100,000 for somebody to run the city operations. Nothing on the magnitude of this county. Allegheny County, I believe, has had a county manager for 27 years. Since 2016, they hired somebody. He stayed 3 years. He left in June. They hired somebody else who just resigned in October. And now the guy who left in June is being paid per diem to come up and help with that transition. The budget had to be done by the legislature and the treasurer. So we're this little county and not a lot of economic development. I don't think the county can really control that, because I think the state atmosphere is what keeps people out of it. But you have to know that when professional people move to this county, and generally their spouse is also a professional person looking for a job, we might be able to hire one of them, but certainly not two of them. So we're not all that appealing. People that live here love it. The people that come from somewhere else see it as a stepping stone to another job. So there'll be a lot of change management going on with department heads as well. The things I've heard mentioned here, people coming to committee and having to get permission for all this, this board has the ability to change that. And I'll be honest, if I was a department head, I'd probably be calling Carol and going, here, could you present this at admin? I don't want to sit out in the hall for 3 hours, And those are all possible under our current situation. And when we had big issues in the past, whatever committee it was, and IGA this year is one that did hold 2 meetings a month. When we were doing the microwave system, PSLA held 2 meetings a month. But when we shorten the time by having all those, Carol read a list, and if that information is presented to everybody by email, they shouldn't have any questions. It shouldn't take the department head to come deliver that piece of paper. You know, it can be, even the chair of the committee said we voted on this, whatever. You'd have additional time there, and God forbid, you know, you could have a meeting of the whole where we discuss the long-term planning. I also agree with Keith. Yes, we know bridges need to be fixed, but there's things that we can plan all we want, and then when criminal justice reform comes in, and we say, wow, we're building a new jail at $33 million or whatever, and then they go, well, you know what? Those people aren't going to be in there anyway, you know, and you have raise the age, and we'll give you money for this. Well, not really. We just wanted to say that in the beginning, and we have to then come up with all those funds. And that happens more often than not with the state. And look at their budget gap right now. I think you're going to see it continuing to happen. So spending $300,000 to $500,000 a year on this person, I don't know. I do know, but I don't have to be here. You guys will be wrestling with it, you know. It's a lot of money, and I think we should try our hardest to do what we can here without it, because as I said, getting the wrong person or somebody that's ill-equipped is not going to serve our needs, nor is it going to serve the department head's needs. And any CEO that runs a $120 million company has the ability to hire or fire. We are telling this person, you don't. You supervise these folks, you write their evaluation, and they'll make a recommendation to the board. And I would find it difficult to terminate somebody based on someone else's position and not my own oversight. And I think you see that around. There's another county right now who has a county administrator that I know people that work in this county. I've talked to people there. They say it's not working, but the board keeps just reappointing the person, and sometimes that becomes easier than because they remember what that first search was like. Well, it's not so bad. Give him another 3-year term, you know. And I talked to an outgoing elected official in that county and asked specifically, what are the changes? What do you think this person did better than the board? And this was not a board member, but another elected. And he said, can't cite you one thing, but I know there's a lot of issues and a lot of problems. So tread carefully.
Anyone else? Well, I'm supportive as well. I echo everyone's sentiments that was supportive. I understand your concerns, and I have those same concerns. And if you do find the wrong person, it absolutely could be a disaster. But you spoke earlier, you used the example of MOSA and how we got out of it, but those same part-time legislatures, previous part-time legislators created that debacle. And so, you know, people are going to make mistakes. This board can make a mistake, administrator can make a mistake, but we have to make sure we get our terminology right. He's a county administrator, not a manager, not an executive. So he is administrating what the board does. The board is still going to be doing much of the same work, maybe not to the same detail, but we have done a lot of really great things over the past several years. Many of them under your leadership, and many in the last couple. And there's a lot more that can be done, and I think having an administrator to take care of some of these more mundane tasks, day-to-day operations, will allow the board to become more creative and continue to come up with some great solutions to problems that we're having, which are going to increase until the climate and all that changes. We're going to continue to have unfunded mandates. We're going to have funding pulled. We're going to aim funding, being redirected at us. This morning you said the state has a $6 billion deficit, which last year they said they had projected zero, and it went from 0 to $6 billion in 11 months. So we're going to be faced with those tasks, and I think we need somebody to help us direct and oversee the entire operation and move that forward.
I don't think you can sit there and blame the county rep for creating most of that. Yeah, they did, but the thing was, back in those days,
They did the best they could with it.
DEC came in and shut down all those landfills, and they had no place to go. So they had to set this up. And I mean, I'm a little upset you kind of blame the previous boards for making that. It's the way it had to be. You know, I mean, it was and then we'd have to do the same thing today if it happened anywhere else or here.
And Joe Kenyon was right in the middle of that.
You know,
I'm not blaming them, I'm just saying
Well, it
it's
sounded like you
creative.
were, I'm sorry.
I apologize if that's the case, but I'm saying it turned out to be, at the time, it seemed they did the best they could with the knowledge they had at that time. That's just as we do here today, and that's what we're doing, I think, as we vote today, is the best we can with the knowledge we have, thanks to the committee and all the research that they've done. We've been talking about this for our board for the past 2 years, but you know, it's been talked about at the county for 20 plus years. And my constituents from all political persuasions overwhelmingly are in favor. I only had 2 people say to me that they weren't in favor of it, and after talking with them a little while, they've changed their opinions. So I think it's time to give it a try, and if it turns out to be a disaster, we can change it. I think having an executive is more likely to fail than an administrator. I didn't necessarily think that at the start of this process, but it shouldn't change our workload at all. It probably will just redirect it. And I also agree that maybe restructuring the districts would be the appropriate time to do that. So, having said that, any other comments?
Just have one little thing to say, which is that I don't think that anybody here has an illusion that this person would be Superman and be able to solve all of our problems, and that we'll never make a mistake again. We'll be perfect. I think there's realism in the expectations of what this person can do. It's just a decision that, given all the pluses and minuses, it's still the best decision we can make. And that's enough.
I want to say call the question just because I can.
I think we're ready to vote anyway, so we don't have to go that far.
We need 2:30, right?
All right, yep, we're ready. Roll call vote.
Frazier? Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? No. Stammel?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Oberacker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
No.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Oatnick?
Aye.
Martini?
Aye.
Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
4,860 ayes, 929 noes, 439 absent. Resolution 314 passes. Thank you all. Now, what do we have next?
Local Law D of 2019, a local law establishing the salaries of Emergency Services Coordinator, Director of Real Property Tax Service Number 2, Personnel Officer, County Superintendent of Highways, Commissioner of Social Services Group 1, Director of Public Health, Commissioner of Elections Republican for the year 2020.
And this is because their terms are beginning again. They've been reappointed for your term.
No.
Midterm.
Midterm.
Oh, midterm. It's up to midterm.
This is
That's right, it's midterm. Right.
It's midterm,
You
and
need a
then the
local law
whole
to change.
salary schedule will, now that the budget is passed, the whole salary schedule will be presented at a later meeting.
Yes.
So I need a second?
Second.
Okay, this will be held over for a public hearing on January 2nd at 9:45 a.m. Just a point of order, January 1st is a Wednesday, or normally be our board meeting, but since it's a holiday, our board meeting will be Thursday, January 2nd. And also we have our mid-month meeting, December 16th coming up for everyone. Gary will not be here, Kathy will be around.
Yes.
So we are saying goodbye to Gary today.
I really am sorry, but I'm going to be in a Tesla driving across the country.
Okay, do we have any late resolutions?
Oh, we actually
Oh, the
Local Law E of 2019, a local law amending local law number 1 of 2014, establishing a solid waste user fee.
Second,
Second.
held over for public hearing at the same time, January 2nd.
Yeah, Yeah, and the only change on that is the committee changed the appeals board. Otherwise, it's the same. Yeah, to the actual committee from an appointed appeals board.
So there are no late resolutions, unfinished business. We do need to retire for an executive session for,
To discuss hiring, firing. Yes, thank you. Michelle, you think I know that one?
I think you can get it in parts, so hiring, firing, disciplinary action.
whatever that one is.
Rule 46.
Okay.
Yes, F.
Rule 47, F. Medical, financial, credit, employment history of a particular person or corporation matters aimed at appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. So, motion to go in executive session?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
And we will not reconvene, we have no other business to attend.